Something else to say, but words have let us all down. We are in the waste now. If we choose to lay down, let them bring our wage down. Nancy, once you face down, pray. If you find resilience in your faith, it's on all of us to lead the way. It takes all of us to lift the weight. We were told it's normal and required that we suffocate. Wait, I will not be carried to my grave in perfect health and perfectly awake. The earth is not the sweetest of escapes, but the surface is a merciless and purpose-sicken place. Don't stay. Tell him that he doesn't have to stay. Hold his hand and let him slip away. There is nothing here that's worth the wait. Nothing good is waiting in the wings. Don't stay. Oh, don't stay.
Said, thank you, Obama, for life in the red. Thank you for DAP and a pat on the head. Thank you for saving the banks as millions are drowning their debt. Thank you for all of the fluff and the nothing you said. Thank you for proving we eat up identity politics. All of your policy better forgotten. Just tell us what books you read. Tell us what record was top of your playlist, turning a wedding to Day of the Dead. What Quavo song went along on a heavy rotation, bombing Iraqis in bed. When they told you that 90% of your kills are civilian, what Jill Scott chorus was stuck in your head? What put you at rest after such a long day of convincing a nation it wasn't so deeply misled, that you weren't just Reagan with New Age media training, who fed on our hopes like his daily bread, who preyed on the weak, who was never unwilling to serve you a speech to remind you the middle class needed to bleed, and you helped us succeed if you learned to accept it, and better yet, learn how to laugh as they bled. Round of applause. Laughter erupts. Mic gets dropped. It's the end of his set. And the crowd, once hungry, are now unstunned from the glow of celebrity, which is impressive, especially since they're contented to sit and be civil while all of the donors are fed. They thin out the herd by 1 million a week if it gives the elite an illusion of peace, like they're out of the path of the future we reap, and they won't be debris in the wake of its tread. But the future is now. Bathe in the sound, drown in the dread. Hide in the lounge, hire more guards at your gatehouse, hire someone to come build you a safe house under your shed. Hide with your diamonds and files, the files you keep to yourself and the files you keep for the feds. Hide in the dark for a while and watch all the value regress. Watch all the worth of your wealth on this earth melt down in a pool with the rest of the cess. The the affluence left over after the worldly collapse of the affluent. After it's back to the dirt with their rights of their birth, privileged smirks and their unpaid taxes, #blast. This has all been a nightmare, capitalism was only a test. So you need not weep and you need not repeat what the liberals said. We will not be saved by people who say that the water is safe while they look in your face and they pantomime sips of lead. Honey, nobody's lifting us out of this mess. Honey, nobody's lifting us out of this mess.
They won't let you go, set you free, or send you home. Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go, set you free, send you home.
I was close enough to smell the fire. Jesus took the wheel and then he kicked me off the ride. I was busy shouting at myself from in the crowd, about to throw down and drag myself outside. I had to give myself the business. When I show myself forgiveness, it goes right between the eyes. Was looking past my shoulder, never focused on the prize. I stalked myself through burning sand the better part of 40 nights. I found myself staring in the mirror, yelling, "Go into the light." Cause I was in the rear view, staring at the highway, horrified. I was in the road ahead, arms wide, ready to be mummified. Gonna be the fella yelling how he's sick of always betting on his life. I'll also be the guy that brought the dice. Half a dozen chambers and I keep an empty 5. Only needed one to break the ice. Only needed one to clear my mind. Only needed one to stop time.
Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go, set you free, send you home.
I'll be the guy that brought the dice.
They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no. It's 'cause you are. It's 'cause you are. They'll gladly stagnate a living wage, snap the chains, bury it. Labor slaves in rusty cages dragged behind a chariot, led by Mr. Racial Jungle, Joseph or Iscariot, fighting over scraps as they barrage us all with variants and BuzzFeed clickbait, straight until we're paralyzed, trying to distract us from the concentration camps that Joe had swore he'd close but only chose to amplify, where they got 50-something kids in cages made for 5 to occupy. And no, she hasn't seen the camps, but Harris swears they're paradise. She tells us the facilities are safe, and that right down to the women, they are regularly sterilized. Then she throws her head back and she proceeds to laugh, that sort of heartless cackle you'd expect from someone working steadfastly on behalf of the virus and a Congress full of parasites. And where was I? I was busy cashing every blue check, demonstrating plainly all the narratives expected from the verified. I was busy breeding verbal leeches by the terabyte. Train them to exsanguinate the wealthy while they sleep at night. Bleed the oil barons dry and barren. Say they showed us how to share and now we share alike. Tell them I contracted rabies from a feral mic. Now I'm just another species losing sleep to noise pollution and these glaring lights, forced to change its habits and adapt to just survive. But now it's safe to say that some of us are thriving in the moment, throwing shit on presidential homes beneath the Paris skies. So if you feel like you're just powerless, I guess you bought the lie. But I can tell they're petrified of our collective might, 'cause I can hear those gentrifiers weeping at the sight of our collective rights. And I only can imagine the intensifying fear of knowing revolution's near, and all that's left to do is simply wallow in the thick anticipation of a rabid bite. And baby, one day you can ask your leaders just what that was like before you grab a slice. So if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. Honey, if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. See, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, and tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't. You see, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and make you build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, where they'll tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So I try to sit down with my wife and watch TV, but I just see propaganda elevating the police in the simplest of sitcom banter, and tiny little altars full of offerings to corporate masters in every well-planned wide pan shot of the name brand stocking up the pantry. Pull back one long tracking shot out to the garage to the logo on the Camry. Nice tight shot of the Camry, close-up view of the Camry, slow pan up on the Camry, long slow zoom to the unmoving human who is up in the front with the tube pumping fumes to him straight from the back of the Camry.
No, Indy left. What is happening here?
To check out IndependentLeft.news.
The Indie News Network.
Indie Left News.
Oh, hey, Indie Left.
IndependentLeft.news. Great work.
Indie Left News.
IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News. Shout out.
Oh, what's up, Independent Left?
Friend show.
Thank you, IndependentLeft.news.
The INN, Indy, you're wonderful.
I think Indy was onto something.
Independent News Network, Indie News.
Yeah. What's up, Indy, over on Rockfin?
Independent News Network, also known as INN.
Indie Left News.
I don't know if I would have made it through that 3 weeks without Indy, honestly.
No, I was just going to ask Indy.
A huge thank you and shout out to Indy Left.
No, you know what we're doing? We're world building, Indy.
Indie Left News.
You were doing the INN recruiting.
Indie News.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News.
Check out Independent Left News.
At Kennedy News.
I see Indy's in the chat. Hi, Indy. Okay, great.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. We're back. It's Sunday night. How do we miss that? That's what it says down in the corner there. I'm not lying. Well, if you're watching, if you're listening on podcast, you saw it in the description and it showed up on your description and on your title. So you know that's How Do We Miss That? And it's Sunday night and it's 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 on the West Coast. If you're hanging out in San Diego or Washington State or Oregon or wherever the heck you might be, thank you for hanging out with us.
Sunny San Diego.
San Diego. I think that means whale's vagina. Is that right? Is that what Ron Burgundy taught us once a long time ago? I think so.
Possibly.
We've already got some family hanging out in the house, and I love it. Let me bring the mic a little closer. Maybe you'll hear my dulcet tones a little bit better. Hello. I got this guy, Reef. I'm Indy, in case anyone didn't know. I got this guy, Reef, sitting next to me. Well, technically, he's in Florida, and I'm in New Jersey. But that's a whole other story for a whole other day. But it looks like he's sitting next to me. So we're hanging out, and we're going to read some articles, and we're going to have some fun. And then we're going to go to do some funny React stuff with boats smashing into other boats after this. And hopefully my internet holds out, and we don't get crashed along the way. And we're going to make it through. This is the 122nd time. We are on Indie News Network, indienews.network. You can check that out. You see it along the crawl. That's where all of the content creators that we hang out with and support and amplify and collaborate with all share their stuff. There's a dozen of us, and we're going to be streaming 7 days a week worth of content this week, at least. We're going to get to that at the end. And while we're here, how was your week, man?
It's all right. Long. A ton of family here, which is always hectic when the Breland clan decides to do stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But other than that, it's been all right.
If you missed it, I filled in for Colin on Wednesday night, and the two of us did INN News together. So it was like, how do we miss that extra on Wednesday night where Reef got to pick the stories and engineer, and I just got to hang out and make funny sound bits and interrupt him all night. So it was a nice change for once. So that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, who else? We got Cynic in the house. We get Himbo in the house. Himbo is taking over the network. Well, I was going to introduce this later, but I don't know if bro, you should make your stream between now and when we close out the show so that I can share it when I was going to introduce it at the end of the show. But Himbo's doing a new show with Yeti. He's been on Politically Homeless Thursday nights. He's doing gaming streams Saturday nights. He was on Angel's show Saturday night also with Miss Witchy Perfect and the wrestling show. It was just Himbo all over the place. And that phrasing, yes, I know. Cynic, hey baby, how are you? So we're going to do some stories tonight, and we are not going to talk about electoral fucking politics. Okay? You know... No, not that guy. No, is that Shane Gillis imitating Trump?
It is.
It is
That
nice.
it is.
That it is nice. All right. We're going to talk about the homeless people in California and how badly they're getting screwed. That's going to be later. We're going to read a letter from doctors and nurses that are coming out of Gaza, U.S. doctors and nurses that have a letter and something to say to the president, which isn't going to surprise anybody listening to this show, but oof, it's hard to hear. Germany and Ali Abu Nima, oh my goodness. We're going to start off tonight with Amazon and the Teamsters, and that's something that we've been talking about for quite a while, right? Well, it's kind of interesting because if this is an intersection of the Teamsters, Amazon, New York, part-timers, and UPS, because this is an article written by our friend Luigi Morris from Left Voice, all right, who is a part-time UPS Teamster who went through the negotiation last year and was highly critical of it. I think he ended up not signing the agreement in the end. He was one of the people to not do that, but we'll see. We'll see what he has to say about Amazon, and you can see here that we've got two people that I don't think he's a very big fan of here. But it starts out that he reports, and we reported this last month, Amazon labor union affiliates with Teamsters. What does this mean for Amazon workers and the labor movement? And thankfully, we also have some watchers and viewers and listeners of the show that are Amazon JFK 8 employees, and I deeply value them and their viewership, their input, their support. And I wish there were more people covering this stuff. Fortunately, we care, and we do. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it from their perspective. And I think Luigi's going to bring that perspective, hopefully. And we're gonna criticize if he doesn't. So let's look at it. So what Luigi and Paula says is that on June 17th, 829 JFK Amazon workers voted to affiliate their new Amazon labor union with the longtime Teamsters union. A new stage for the ALU begins. Okay. So he says, in recent years, let me blow this up a little bit for everyone because this is a little smaller. All right. In recent years, Amazon has exemplified the relentless pursuit of profit maximization using cutting-edge technology to streamline operations while exploiting a non-unionized workforce. This model has allowed Amazon to amass significant wealth and power on the backs of its workforce, not just the workforce, and I'll add that it's also on the third-party contractors who they outsource to. The company has become a focal point for unionization efforts, as reaching a first collective bargaining agreement with Amazon would not only transform the working conditions for its over 1 million employees, but also challenge this hyper-exploitative framework, having implications for the logistics industry and the working class as a whole. That's pretty important, right? Among the various sectors attempting to unionize Amazon workers, the Amazon Labor Union, or ALU, which successfully established the first union at Amazon in 2022, at least in the United States, has made a significant move by affiliating with the Teamsters Union, which represents 1.3 million workers, most of them related to the logistics and freight industry, which kind of makes sense. This alliance has ignited considerable debate within labor circles. Should the ALU have remained independent? Can it maintain autonomy within the Teamsters, or will it be subsumed by the union's top-down bureaucracy? These are exactly the kind of questions we've been asking. Can the ALU secure a contract on its own, or does it need the backing of a larger organization? What's the potential firepower of Amazon and UPS workers united under one union? And furthermore, does this affiliation present an opportunity to infuse more leftist and radical elements into the Teamsters? Through these questions, we delve into the implications of this recent affiliation and its potential impact on the broader labor movement. So look, I love the framing and the questions that he's asking. And I just hope that they're arriving at a lot of the same conclusions. But either way, I thought it was really important to bring that there are people that are actually asking these questions within the union, within the Teamsters, within UPS. and within the workforce in general. It's not just about Amazon. It's not just about JFK 8. This is about the labor sector. This is about everybody who works for a living and who works for a mega corporation. So here he talks about Amazon labor union. And again, no surprise to anybody in this chat. On April 1st, 2022, Amazon workers at the JFK 8 warehouse on Staten Island, New York, made history by voting to unionize. Leading the charge against the second largest U.S. employer were Chris Smalls and Derek Palmer and Michelle Valentin Nieves, workers at JFK 8, who took up a union campaign after Smalls was unjustly fired after organizing a workout during the pandemic. The victory marked the formation of the first U.S. union in Amazon's history as the workers established the independent Amazon Labor Union. The news reverberated globally, signifying a major breakthrough in labor organizing. Their win ignited a wave of labor organizing, and it kind of did. It was already on the way, but sure, it rode that wave, inspiring a new generation of workers to form new unions and democratize existing ones. This new moment for labor must be viewed in the broader context of a shift in working class consciousness brought on by the pandemic, which exposed workers' essential role as the backbone of society. Correct. That's my point, is that it wasn't necessarily them. It was the pandemic, and it was conditions that were happening monetarily and globally that led to this worker movement and them saying enough is enough. The amount of greed and profit taking that was happening at the top by all the top 1% during this, right?
Yep.
So simultaneously, the country witnessed the massive Black Lives Matter movement, sparked by the police killing of George Floyd, which spread across the world. Despite the efforts by union leaderships to keep the movement separate, the BLM movement profoundly influenced vast sectors of the working class, especially at Amazon, whose warehouse workers are mainly Black and immigrant workers. That's interesting. I've never really heard of a tie between Black Lives Matter and Amazon workers until this article. So now I'm really interested to hear what he has to say. Let me take a sip here. I mean,
coffee.
Coffee. What have you heard? And is there anything new, surprising beyond that to you in this that you've heard so far?
No, I mean, I've pretty much written ALU off for the most part, and now going to become part of the Teamsters, pretty much, right?
No,
that looks like where it's headed.
That's where they are right now.
So,
expectations soared.
I've not been fans of their decision making right now either. So,
just appealing to either
not the best
political party. Yeah, probably not the best idea. But going to both at least is more favorable than going to one over the other.
Yeah.
But
God forbid we don't get either, but whatever.
Right. And start your own independent party that challenges them and makes them come to you for power. But that's a whole other story.
That's you don't have to politicize your thing by even interacting with politicians like that. Like, they need to come give you concessions,
Right.
But anyway.
What are they going to do to earn your vote? Yes. So,
right.
Getting back here, expectations soared after the JFK 8 victory, but the reality unfolded differently, as we've also reported. 2 years later, the JFK 8 warehouse remains Amazon's only unionized warehouse in the United States. The ALU faced setbacks, losing elections at LDJ 5 in Staten Island and ALB 1 near Albany. Again, I wrote about all this. These outcomes were shaped by intense union-busting campaigns by the company, but also reflected the shortcomings of ALU's strategies under Chris Smalls' leadership. We've definitely questioned that. The ALU, led by Chris Smalls, made missteps early on. Smalls guided the ALU with a strategy that hinged on a mix of factors: widespread disdain for Jeff Bezos, the significant impact of the ALU's initial victory, Smalls' public persona, and support from progressive Democrats. Wow, he must have read our articles. But taking a $1 trillion company such as Amazon is a Herculean task, one that cannot rely on these elements alone. Missing from the ALU's
David and Goliath test.
But missing from the ALU strategy was sustained grassroots organizing, direct action, and most importantly, workers' democracy and class independence, as well as your own media and PR arm that provided the story of the workers directly, like you're doing right now, Luigi. But I 100% agree with you. This summer, the ALU will elect a new union leadership, and Smalls will not run for president or any other position. Yet, despite his imminent detachment from the thousands of Amazon workers at JFK 8, Smalls recently signed an agreement with the Teamsters to move forward with a membership affiliation vote. Amazon workers first learned about this negotiation through the Teamsters' social media accounts, which misleadingly suggested the affiliation was already complete. I wonder where that came from. Yeah, we knew that too. And we definitely reported that here. I'm so glad that Luigi's doing that with Left Voice, because so few did. World Socialist website had this months ago, thankfully. The Teamsters rushed this process for several reasons. One being to secure the agreement before Smalls left the ALU. Negotiating with the Reform Caucus slate could have led to more challenging negotiations for the Teamsters. That's assuming the Reform Caucus slate was going to win, but what about the original people that are still running also, like Michelle and Ronald and the people that I interviewed in February? It's funny that Luigi doesn't even mention like the rank and file workers that are running, that were booted off the executive board. Shout out to them, by the way. In this situation, the ALU Democratic Reform Caucus had to take a rushed decision and decided to support the affiliation and encourage Amazon workers to vote in favor of affiliating with the Teamsters. That's, I believe, somebody named Connor Spence is involved with the ALU Democratic Reform Caucus. Not really a big fan of what they did there. True to their style, the Teamsters published a statement claiming a near unanimous 98.3% in favor vote. But they omitted that only 829 of the roughly 5,500 to 6,000 Amazon workers at JFK 8 participated in that vote, a stark contrast to the historic union vote, which saw over 4,800 workers casting ballots. So you're talking about like 15%, 20% of the total workers even in the warehouse voted at all, and they're calling that 98% in favor when 80% didn't even vote at all. Okay. The fact that Teamsters initiated this affiliation with maneuvers and rushed what should have been a participatory, democratic, and formative decision already highlights the contradictions and limitations that the ALU will face within the Teamsters. All right, so Luigi has no misgivings about what the Teamsters plan to do here, and I appreciate that, at least, right? Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Like, what?
The affiliation agreement charters a new local known as Amazon Labor Union Number 1, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, which is ALU IBT Local 1, right? For the 5 boroughs of New York City. Yep. And they actually we covered a couple weeks ago, they presented a list of demands to their bosses, including to get Juneteenth as a holiday. Back in 2022, the victory of the ALU was seen as a fresh and encouraging union drive organized by workers and fired workers with few resources and without the weight of a traditional union. This success demonstrated that the low unionization rate in the U.S., currently under 10%, is a result not only of anti-union laws and union-busting tactics, but also of the adaptation and lack of interest from big unions in organizing the working class. Yeah, sure. Meanwhile, the IBT is at a crossroads. Amazon's practices, particularly its rapid technological advancements and unchecked exploitation of its massive workforce, yes, threaten the jobs of unionized workers at UPS. What does he mean? He's talking about automation. All right. We've also covered how UPS is going to be closing facilities nationwide, and they plan on reducing their workforce by as much as 80% in some facilities in order to account for automation and have a lot fewer people handling these packages. For the IBT, unionizing Amazon has become essential for its survival. That's interesting. The IBT has a strong incentive to invest in organizing Amazon since its existence as a union depends on it. Again, they already have the truck drivers and all the UPS drivers nationwide. So they have 1.3 members. They need Amazon in order to survive. I don't know if I agree with that, but let's hear why he says so. Many union organizers support the ALU's affiliation with the Teamsters, arguing that without the resources, staff, and structure, winning a strong contract against a giant like Amazon is impossible. Hard to argue with. This perspective places more faith in a bureaucratic apparatus rather than in the creativity and power of the working class. Ultimately, the decision to join a larger union or remain independent is a tactical one. Both paths require rank-and-file members to take their struggle into their own hands, make decisions democratically, and strategize their fight against Amazon. It is their jobs, livelihoods, and futures that are at stake. This is exactly what I said when I went on the homeless left and on Hardlens Media last month to talk exactly about this issue. So again, I'm so glad that Luigi's writing this. All right, because adding this third-party union puts a broker in there that has its own agenda and its own marketing thing. They're collecting dues from other people in other industries and other companies. They have to worry about their interests too. So UPS with Amazon, if Amazon shuts down, guess what? UPS's business is heavily impacted too. So doesn't that give Sean O'Brien now reason to not want to put Amazon on strike, because that would then hurt UPS's business, or put UPS on strike because that would hurt Amazon's business? Back and forth. Understand that there is a problem of a conflict of interest there, potentially with a union. Joining a larger union is no silver bullet. The potential power of a union is not the same as its power under top-down leadership. It remains to be seen how much the Teamsters will boost or hinder organizing efforts at Amazon, and how pre-Teamsters union organizing there can influence the Teamsters. The Amazon workers will bring in an enormous workforce to the union that depending on its politics and organizing, could change and fundamentally challenge the union and its structure. I hope so, but not with a few thousand workers joining 1.3 million that aren't even really joining because they're just affiliated and not actual full-fledged dues-paying members. The affiliation with ALU and Teamsters carries enormous potential. That I agree with. With over 1 million Amazon workers who are yet to be organized, this affiliation could generate the firepower to fight for greater numbers of Amazon warehouses and distribution centers to unionize as well. This unity of Amazon workers with the other 300,000 UPS workers would represent a huge step in organizing the logistics sector, a sector that is critical to today's capitalism and strategically powerful for the labor movement. I'd love to be able to see the engineers and the rail people join this, but we know that they're federally controlled, so that's not going to necessarily happen. But this new union organizing at Amazon has also presented an opportunity to discuss concrete examples of how to build workers' democracy in our unions. Again, I don't necessarily think that unions are the answer, and I don't think Luigi may either. Challenging the top-down union leaderships. Under constitutions, as one example, right? Union constitutions could be developed from below in democratic assemblies and voted on by the rank and file. Except that the union leadership would never want that to happen. They would never want to be led by their rank and file. They want to make the decisions themselves, Luigi. Workers could advocate for democratic measures like union elected officials earning the same wage as Amazon workers, rotating the president's position to avoid entrenchment, which should definitely happen, developing new worker leaders, absolutely, and pledging unity within the international working class, 100%. And I think Chris was even trying to do that, but that gets expensive because you have to have international travel. A democratic union constitution, fully written by Amazon workers, could encourage other workers to reform and democratize their unions. That's a little kumbaya, kind of pie in the sky, hopey dreamy, but no, I'd rather have something more concrete than that, but okay. These powerful ideas about workers' democracy are not just the right thing to do, but actually represent a strategic necessity for the working class. Democratically discussing strategy and decisions, fighting for our own demands, and refusing concessions by top-down leaders. Which, yes, we should also be looking at worker-run co-ops and getting rid of the middle management leadership in the entire place to begin with.
Yep.
All right. With all this in mind, it's important to note that Local 1 will represent the first ALU-IBT affiliate established under the Teamsters Constitution, likely limiting the space for constitutional discussion and other democratic demands. Of course, because that's what they were looking to do. Now he looks to criticize the Teamsters under Sean O'Brien, and remember, he is a Teamster. He speaks directly from experience, and he is a dues-paying Teamster of the UPS who's a part-time warehouse worker who can't get full-time work there, by the way. The ALU Reform Caucus now finds itself in a complicated situation. On the one hand, it must recognize the JFK 8. On the other hand, it must answer some difficult questions. Why did the union fail to make meaningful progress in fighting for a contract under Smalls? Why did the union need a strategic shift? What does it mean to affiliate with the Teamsters? And how will it organize democratically from below to secure a contract and build a fighting union? Before I get into reading what Luigi says here as his answer, I want to say that my opinion there is that, first of all, talk to Michelle, because I don't know if Luigi and Michelle have ever connected, and I would love to see the two of them have a conversation. I think a lot of these questions would also be answered by her and could be answered by her. Why does it need a strategic shift? Is that I think that too much power was put in the hands of Chris Smalls by the lawyers, and it was taken away from the people who actually mostly work in the warehouses.
No, Chris? What are you doing, Chris?
Okay. So, Amazon affiliating with the Teamsters should not mean being uncritical of the union's leadership, nor does it mean ignoring or postponing the discussion of the contradictions involved in joining the Teamsters. We need to be clear, Teamsters President Sean O'Brien is neither a role model of union leadership nor an example of working class independence. Okay, that's a good start. First, this was made abundantly clear with O'Brien's appearance at the Republican National Committee. Under O'Brien, the Teamsters have donated over $40,000 to the Republican Party, had meetings with Trump and his people, and recently praised Trump and Vance at the RNC. This convention represents the most conservative, right-wing, anti-worker, and anti-immigrant elements of the capitalist agenda. O'Brien's appearance hurts the unity of the working class. Again, I don't know if I 100% agree with him. I agree with him on what he says there. I don't know if it hurts the agenda. I think somebody who represents the working class even slightly should go out and speak for workers. And I know a lot of people did really like what he had to say and were inspired, believe it or not, and said, he at least someone spoke to the boss and stuck it to him a little bit and told him how it was. And yeah, of course he's on their side. Of course he's going to make a deal, and of course he's going to cave on behalf of the people he represents. However, again, he should be there. I feel like someone who represents 1.3 million workers needs to be represented at both conventions, right? Even if we don't like them. He says, as we explained in this article, which was another Left Voice article called Teamsters President Gives Working Class Cover to the Big Tent GOP a couple days before, O'Brien, in a clear example of business unionism, all right, in his speech, while criticizing multinational corporations and apologists, O'Brien pointed out that profits can still soar at companies with good union jobs, boasting UPS's worldwide efficiency as an example, not mentioning that one of the key secrets for its success has been the hyper-exploitation of warehouse workers historically allowed by the Teamsters Union. Thanks, Sean. Second, it's important to have an honest balance sheet from the UPS contract struggle. As a warehouse worker, I wrote an article about it called A Power Restrained: Lessons from the Front Lines of the UPS Contract Struggle that goes more into the details. And actually, we read that article here on the show last year. Proud to say. He says, we can take a look at these comments by Sam Gindin and Jane and the recently passed Jane McAlevey. May she rest in peace. Sam Gindin wrote for Jacobin, quote, the union made big gains, but in opting not to strike over demands beyond wages, the Teamsters may have passed up transformative opportunity for the labor movement. Gindin further raises an important question regarding warehouse workers. And again, remember that Jacobin is a reformist organization that's democratically aligned. The reprehensible secondary status for part-time workers, generally the inside workers in the warehouses and the majority of the union members at UPS, remains firmly in place. And the promise of more full-time jobs is little more than a paper commitment. Also, warehouse workers saw little or no attention paid to their working conditions. How then do supporters of democracy and militancy so readily accept a settlement resolved without a strike that limits workers' active resistance for 5 years? That's what we've been screaming about. And thank you again, Luigi, and to those UPS workers that did the practice strikes and that were ready to walk out. And they got sold out and screwed over. Because the people don't necessarily represent them. They represent the union that they're aligned with and that they pay into, but it's not all them. 1.3 million, that's not all UPS workers. Why aren't UPS workers making the decisions and negotiating directly with UPS? No, you need the third-party broker. So Jane McAlevey wrote a bunch of stuff too. Okay, he said one of the most important struggles taken up by the labor movement these last 9 months has been the fight against the genocide in Palestine, which puts the rank and file in direct confrontation with the Biden administration and with union leaderships. At least in action, not in lip service. One of its greatest chapters was written by the University of California student workers who went on strike against the repression of pro-Palestine movement and genocide, right? On the opposite end of the spectrum, not only have the Teamsters failed to mobilize their membership to oppose the ongoing genocide in Gaza, but they haven't even done the bare minimum of issuing a statement against it. Instead, O'Brien has shaken hands with the two presidential candidates who support Israel's massacre of the Palestinian people. Neither Genocide Joe nor, Holocaust Harris, that's the new one, all right, nor Trump represent a progressive alternative for the Palestinian people, nor the working class here in the United States. All right. The upcoming elections reflect a shift to the right in the political situation. As the working class, we have to prepare to fight back with our own perspective and methods of struggle. Independent media is one of them, and Luigi Morris is one of them. In this context, Amazon workers need to know what they're getting into from the jump. Explaining the contradictions and bureaucratic tendencies among the Teamsters later in the game, when a crisis erupts, might be too late. Okay, I'm going to repeat that line again. Thank you, George Carlin, because this might be vaguely important. Amazon workers need to know what they're getting into from the jump. Explaining the contradictions and bureaucratic tendencies among the Teamsters leadership later in the game, when a crisis erupts, might be too late. Why? Because rather than confusing workers by putting forward uncritical support toward the Teamsters affiliation, a clear assessment of the possibilities and contradictions will better guide Amazon workers. They don't have to get fully on board with the Teamsters right now. But if they fully align with the Teamsters, they're silenced. As the recent presidential debate, if you can call it that, and its aftermath have exposed, the working class needs to show an alternative with a clear and class-independent solution. None of the above. None of the above. Everybody, please vote none of the above. Let's do it. Come on, everybody get on board. We're starting to get them one by one. 100 million people can't be wrong. That's right. As Josefina Martinez explains, although Amazon workers and logistics workers generally occupy a strategic position, this doesn't automatically mean greater power vis-a-vis the company. In order to make use of this advantage, it is necessary, first of all, to go beyond the methods of traditional unionism of the old union bureaucracies, to recover combative forms of struggle, to unite the demands of permanent and temporary workers. That's one way they divide workers. Native-born and migrant workers, another way. Warehouse workers and transport workers, to be able to articulate a powerful force that truly challenged the company. That's the name of the game, is divide and conquer, among the bosses. Is they make the workers fight it out with each other and fight for scraps, right? The workers' movement of 2023, which culminated in the UAW stand-up strike, which was garbage, showed us that strikes work. Oh, God. That we have the power to throw a wrench in the massive profits that bosses obtain from squeezing our last drops of sweat, except it didn't work and it didn't impact their profits one bit. So, like I said, I like what he's saying here, but I'm going to criticize when I think he's wrong. He's a UPS Teamster. He's not a member of the UAW. I don't know how closely he even really followed that fight, but either way, I completely disagree with his assessment there. They did gain some concessions, but they closed plants. They moved a lot of stuff toward electric plants, and they've laid off a ton of workers since. The working class has shown that it's ready to fight, but while the working class has advanced a social force and have begun to rupture with its traditional representatives, as shown by the twin phenomenon of Trumpism and Sandersism, which was consumed by the Democratic Party, the working class has not yet taken on its own subjectivity outside the context of the bipartisan regime. Yes, the duopoly controls all, is what he's saying, very simply, even though it took him a paragraph to say so. As O'Brien's appearance at the RNC shows, our struggle at workplaces is crossed by politics. I disagree, but again, that's who's making the money is making the decisions in Washington. So in that way, Jeff Bezos is political, and you have to, I don't know how you're going to influence the people that he's buying. He says, as we explained in a previous article, for us, there's a different alternative: to be truly independent from the Democrats and Republicans. Yes. And from the ruling class. Yes. Which is served by all capitalist political parties. But this alternative requires advancing a class-independent political subject that can command our own political destiny outside of and in direct confrontation with the capitalist parties. Sure. Who? How? Where? New heroic chapters about how the Amazon workers are still new heroic chapters about the Amazon workers are still to be written, and they will be written by its own protagonists. Yeah, because nobody else is going to write happy stories about Amazon workers besides Amazon workers and maybe us. But we're just trying to tell the stories that they're experiencing. And we, again, have spoken with Heather up in Albany and Michelle and the crew down in Staten Island, and fired Amazon workers all over the country. And this is something that's been really important to me and to INN. Colin and I have been really close on this, even Reef, even though he bags on it, he's sat here through all of it. So he's watched and he's seen how the labor unions have just screwed over the workers in general while running around claiming that they're doing phenomenal work, and their executives live.
Well, and it's been this way since both my parents both involved heavily with unions in the past, and it's been that way. So it's par for the course. Yeah. But occasionally we get some hopefuls, and then our dreams are crushed. So
it's just every time they get you every damn time.
Yep.
How do they do it? All right. Well, we got Kameshwari Kate. How are you? Good to see you. And Abby is here from the show with Mastermind Hour Civilian Discourse. Everybody check that out. And yes, Care Bear's here too. What's up, Care Bear? In chat, Mastermind Hour, there he is. Good to see you, sir. We got, I'm sure, Bad Cookies is floating around somewhere. If he's not here yet, he'll be here soon. Topher 1010 over on the Kick. We are live, kick.com/Indie News Network. We've got 21 subscribers already. We're on our way to 1 million, folks. 1 million. We're catching you, Car Lens Meter. We're going to catch you, Kit Cabello. Fred Edward is here. Good to see you, sir.
Hardlines Media. What?
Dave Burt is over on Rockfin. Rockfin.com/IND Left News. We're still broken, but I changed the logo so it looks like an INN logo at least now instead of my own. Yep. Dave's writing an article and he's listening in. He's a few minutes behind, so hopefully he'll get caught up soon. Heidi Benner, good to see you here tonight. And Himbo I saw floating out there. So we've got good family, and oh my goodness, this one's not going to be a fun one, but I thought it was important because these people worked their asses off and sacrificed and bled and watched people bleed. Why is it doing that? Let's oh, I see now. Okay. Popular Resistance, right? Indie Media Award honoree. By the way, Left Voice was too on that last article. There's a good chance Luigi Morris will be too in 2024, but we'll see how that shakes out later on this year. Topher says Hardlines Media. Oh, we know what that sound represents. That is a Ko-fi to the QR code that you see down at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much to anyone who's doing that. And we'll get to that in a second. Topher says, Hardlines Media is is better known as the Hunter Biden podcast. Okay. Oh, it's Sean the Accord Lord. Thank you, Indian Reef. $10. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. Love you, brother. Okay.
Appreciate you, fam.
Story I want to get to tonight from Popular Resistance Indie Media Award honoree. It's an open letter. It's an open letter from U.S. physicians and nurses after they visited Gaza. And man, I'm like, wow.
I've read a few of those. Not good. Not
good. We read from a Palestinian doctor, I remember a couple of months ago. So this above team of healthcare workers, okay, volunteered to work with the WHO through the Palestinian American Medical Association. All right, now remember who gets into Gaza and who's still allowed to stay in Gaza. And thank God these people are still alive. They survived. They ran through. Yeah, Himbo, I'm promising you, this is going to make you fucking mad. I'm sorry. All right. So they sent this. So Feroz, who's one of the doctors, published this open letter addressed to POTUS VP and FLOTUS, signed by 45 American physicians and nurses, about what they saw while working in Gaza. Please feel free to distribute. A PDF can be downloaded from the link and or QR code on page 1. I don't even want to read the quoted part. I mean, we'll get to the quoted part, but this is written on July 25th, and it says, American physicians and nurses' observations from the Gaza Strip since October 7th, 2023. Dear President Joseph R. Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Dr. Jill Biden, We are 45 American physicians, surgeons, and nurses who have volunteered in the Gaza Strip since October 7th, 2023. We have worked with various non-governmental organizations and the World Health Organization in hospitals throughout the Strip, except none exist anymore, but that's my own 2 cents. In addition to our medical and surgical expertise, many of us have a public health background as well as expertise in working in humanitarian and conflict zones, including Ukraine during the brutal Russian invasion. That was provoked by NATO and the United States, by the way, but that's a whole other, the Maidan invasion and Victoria Nuland and destabilization by Jake Sullivan and the Biden administration, but that's a whole other story. Again, back to the doctors.
Who's a madman?
Some of us are veterans of the United States Armed Forces. We are a multi-faith and multi-ethnic group. None of us support the horrors committed on October 7th by Palestinian armed groups and individuals in Israel. So they are not Hamas. The Constitution of the World Health Organization states, quote, "The health of all peoples is fundamental to the attainment of peace and security and is dependent on the fullest cooperation of individuals and states," unquote. It is in this spirit that we write to you. We are among the only neutral observers who have been permitted to enter the Gaza Strip since October 7th. Because they murdered most of the journalists and don't permit any beyond that. Given our broad expertise and direct experience of working throughout Gaza, we are uniquely positioned to comment on several matters of importance to our government as it decides whether to continue supporting Israel's attack on and siege of the Gaza Strip. Actually, it already has decided to continue doing that, but I hope it stops doing that today, although Israel has all the funds and ammunition they need to do whatever they want to do at this point. Specifically, we believe that we are well positioned to comment on the massive human toll from Israel's attack on Gaza, especially the toll it has taken on women and children. This letter collects and summarizes our own experiences and direct observations in Gaza. We have also provided links to a much longer and heavily cited appendix summarizing the publicly available information from the media, humanitarian, and academic sources on key aspects of Israel's invasion of Gaza. Denialism will not work here. The appendix is available as a PDF file at tinyurl.com/Gaza Doctors Letter Appendix. This letter can be accessed electronically as a PDF file also. I think it says that twice. At a different, at tinyurl.com/Gaza Doctors Letter. Drop the word appendix and you get the letter itself.
Right.
This letter and the appendix show probative evidence that the human toll in Gaza is far higher than is understood in the United States. As we once mentioned, Ralph Nader said months and months ago that it should be at minimum 200,000. However, what they're saying here, it is likely that the death toll from this conflict is already greater than 92,000, an astonishing 4.2% of Gaza's population. Our government must act immediately to prevent an even worse catastrophe than what has already befallen the people of Gaza and Israel. A ceasefire must be imposed on both Israel and Palestinian armed groups by withholding military support for Israel and supporting an international arms embargo on both Israel and all Palestinian armed groups. We believe our government... again, this is the doctors are suggesting this.
I get it. I know.
We believe our government is obligated to do this both under American law and international humanitarian law, and that it is the right thing to do. With only marginal exceptions...
Good luck convincing people
go ahead.
Who are defending their kids to give up their arms. Good luck. Two-state might not be the best option here, but just saying, what do I know?
With only marginal exceptions, everyone in Gaza is sick, injured, or both. This includes every national aid worker, every international volunteer, and probably every Israeli hostage, every man, woman, and child. While working in Gaza, we saw widespread malnutrition in our patients and our Palestinian healthcare colleagues. Every one of us lost weight rapidly in Gaza, despite having privileged access to food and having taken our own supplementary nutrient-dense food with us. We have photographic evidence of life-threatening malnutrition in our patients, especially children, that we are eager to share with you. Of course, they're not eager to see it. Virtually every child under the age of 5 whom we encountered, both inside and outside of the hospital, had both a cough and watery diarrhea. We found cases of jaundice, including hepatitis A infection under such conditions, in virtually every room of the hospitals in which we served, and in many of our healthcare colleagues in Gaza. An astonishingly high percentage of our surgical incisions became infected from the combination of malnutrition, impossible operating conditions, and lack of supplies and medications, including antibiotics. Again, which is the intent by Israel.
Yeah.
Where is the fact that Israel is intentionally doing this to them and to the people? The pregnant women we treated often gave birth to underweight infants, and they were unable to breastfeed due to malnutrition, of course. And they were not given baby formula either. This left their newborns at high risk of death, given the lack of access to potable water anywhere in Gaza. Many of those infants died. In Gaza, we watched malnourished new mothers feed their underweight newborns infant formula made with poisonous water. We can never forget that the world abandoned.
Got dysentery now, is what I've also heard.
Mm-hmm.
Which, classically, big problem with clean water.
We can never forget that the world abandoned these innocent women and babies. We urge you, you fucking monsters, to recognize that epidemics are raging in Gaza, which you inflicted, you fucking pieces of shit. Israel's continued repeated displacement of the malnourished and sick population of Gaza, half of whom are children, to areas with no running water or even toilets available is absolutely shocking and abhorrent and disgraceful. It is virtually guaranteed to result in widespread death from viral and bacterial diarrheal diseases and pneumonias, particularly in children under the age of 5. We worry that
is on purpose.
Of course. We worry that unknown thousands have already died from the lethal combination of malnutrition and disease, and that tens of thousands more will die in the coming months. Most of them, of course, will be young children. And again, this is the plan of the Biden administration, Harris administration, and future Trump administration. It doesn't matter who. Thanks, assholes. And for all the assholes that cheered for that fucking war criminal at Congress this week, too. Children are universally considered innocents in an armed conflict. However, every single signatory to this letter treated children in Gaza who suffered violence that must have been deliberately directed at them, as we all have known and been documented for months now. Specifically, every one of us on a daily basis treated preteen children who were shot in the head and chest. President and Dr. Biden, we wish you could see the nightmares that plague so many of us since we've returned. Dreams of children maimed and mutilated by our weapons, and their inconsolable mothers begging us to save them. We wish you could hear the cries and screams of our consciences that will not let us forget. We cannot believe that anyone would continue arming the country that is deliberately killing these children after seeing what we've seen. The pregnant women we treated were particularly malnourished. Again, by design and by intent. Starved by Israel. Those of us who worked with pregnant women regularly saw stillbirths and maternal deaths that were easily preventable in any third world healthcare system. The rate of infection in C-section incisions was astonishing. Women underwent C-sections without anesthesia and were given nothing but Tylenol afterwards, because no other pain medications were available or allowed in. Because there are monsters running among us and running our countries that are allowed somehow to do this. All of us observed emergency departments overwhelmed by patients seeking treatment for chronic medical conditions such as renal failure, that's kidneys, hypertension, and diabetes. Aside from trauma patients, most ICU beds were taken up by type 1 diabetics who no longer had access to insulin due to the lack of medication and widespread loss of electricity and refrigeration. Finally, they say
incubators failed.
Finally, they said it. Israel has destroyed more than half of Gaza's healthcare resources and has killed 1 out of every 40 healthcare workers in Gaza. At the same time, healthcare needs have of course increased massively from the lethal combination of military violence, malnutrition, and disease. The hospitals where we worked, which are now all blown up and destroyed, were starved of basic supplies from surgical material to soap. Jesus. They were regularly cut off from electricity and internet access, denied clean water, and operated at 4 to 7 times their bed capacity. Every hospital was overwhelmed beyond the breaking point by displaced persons seeking safety, by the constant stream of patients whose treatment of chronic conditions had been interrupted by the war, by the huge influx of seriously wounded patients who typically arrived in mass casualty events, and by the sick and malnourished seeking medical care. So basically everybody there.
Yep.
These observations in the publicly available material detailed in the appendix lead us to believe that the death toll from this conflict is many times higher than what is reported by the Gaza Ministry of Health, because that's been destroyed too. We also believe that this is probative evidence of widespread violations of American laws governing the use of American weapons abroad and of international humanitarian law. Are you listening, ICJ? Bring all these motherfuckers before the Hague. We cannot forget the scenes of unbearable cruelty directed at women and children that we witnessed ourselves. From the IDF. And, of course, by the leaders of Israel and the people who sent the weapons there, but mostly by the IDF. As we met our healthcare colleagues in Gaza, it was clear that they were malnourished, both physically and mentally devastated. We quickly learned that our Palestinian healthcare colleagues were among the most traumatized people in Gaza and perhaps the entire world. Like virtually all people in Gaza, they'd lost family members and their homes. Most lived in and around their hospitals with their surviving families in unimaginable conditions. Although they continued working a grueling schedule, they of course hadn't been paid since October 7th. All were actively aware that their work as healthcare providers had them marked as targets for Israel. This makes a mockery of the protected status hospitals and healthcare providers are granted under the oldest and most widely accepted provisions of international humanitarian law. No, they just blame everything on Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. You are Hamas. The healthcare workers are Hamas. The incubators are Hamas. The ultrasound machines, Hamas. We met healthcare personnel in Gaza who worked at hospitals who had been raided and destroyed by Israel and the IDF. Many of these colleagues of ours were taken by Israel during the attacks. Prisoner, kidnapped. They all told us a slightly different version of the same story. In captivity, they were barely fed, continuously physically and psychologically abused, and finally dumped naked on the side of the road. How nice. How humanitarian. Many told us they were subjected
Only
to...
democracy in the Middle East doing that.
Many said they were subjected to mock executions and other forms of mistreatment and torture. Far too many of our healthcare colleagues told us that they were simply waiting to die. We urge you to see, even though we know you won't, that Israel has directly targeted and deliberately devastated Gaza's entire healthcare system, and that Israel has targeted our colleagues in Gaza for death, disappearance, and torture. These unconscionable acts are entirely at odds with American law, American values, and international human law, and therefore you are criminal and should be put in jail yourselves. Dr. Biden, you worked with young people throughout your life. We hope and pray that you will not look away from the unspeakable horrors the youth of Gaza face today, horrors only we as Americans can end, and only we as Americans helped inflict. We sincerely hope you will do everything in your power to stop what is being done to them, which is sit on your ass and do nothing. Yes?
I mean, Biden would definitely be willing to sniff hair of these children, but I don't think he's willing to help them, clearly.
Well, they're talking to Jill Biden, who really is apparently running the country anyway.
Okay.
President Biden and Vice President Harris. Any solution to this problem must begin with an immediate and permanent ceasefire, and not just rhetoric or lip service to it, an actual thing. We urge you to withhold military, economic, and diplomatic support from the State of Israel, and to participate in an international arms embargo of both Israel and all Palestinian armed groups, which are not arming in the first place, until a permanent ceasefire is established. Go ahead.
No, keep going. No, I mean, it's
right.
Just both sidesing. It's fine.
Right. And until until good faith negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians lead to a permanent resolution on the conflict, which the Palestinians have offered all the hostages in exchange for their hostages, and Israel keeps saying no, 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 and they're just going to take the whole thing and murder everybody.
Yeah.
In the meantime, number one, all land crossings between Gaza and Israel, as well as the Rafah crossing, must be open to unfettered aid delivery by recognized international humanitarian organizations. Except they just blew up the Rafah crossing.
Yeah.
Security screening of aid deliveries must be conducted by an independent international inspection regime. Independent international inspection regime instead of Israeli forces. Yeah. Good luck getting that to happen. These screenings must be based on a clear, unambiguous, and published list of forbidden items with a clear, independent international mechanism for challenging forbidden items as verified by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the Occupied Palestinian Territory. Basically, enforce laws that they have never enforced before. Number two, they are demanding a bare minimum water allocation of 20 liters of potable...
And still keep Israel as a middleman.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. They're not making any real demands of Israel. They're really just making demands of the president to have them hold Israel accountable in this case, not anything more, because they're just doctors. They're not trying to be political in that case. This is working with what they have. A bare minimum water allocation of 20 liters of potable water per person per day must be allocated to the population of Gaza as verified by UN Water. Number three, full and unrestricted access of medical and surgical professionals and medical and surgical equipment to the Gaza Strip must be allowed. This must include items taken in healthcare professionals' personal luggage to safeguard their proper storage, sterility, and timely delivery as verified by the WHO. That's something Israel was also doing, was confiscating these personal doctors' bags and tools and equipment. Incredibly, Israel is currently blocking any physician of Palestinian descent from working in Gaza, even American citizens. This makes a mockery of the American ideal that all men are created equal, and that degrades our nation and our profession. Our work is life-saving. Our Palestinian healthcare colleagues in Gaza are desperate for relief and protection, and they deserve both. We are not politicians. We do not claim to have all the answers, or any actually in this case. We are simply physicians and nurses who cannot remain silent in what we saw in Gaza, about what we saw in Gaza. And I'm glad that they didn't. Every day we continue to supplying weapons and munitions to Israel is another day that women are shredded by our bombs and children are murdered with our bullets. President Biden and Vice President Harris, we urge you, end this madness now. And this again is signed by 45 doctors and nurses who just have served in Gaza since October 7th. And here are all their names. And this is in Popular Resistance. And I'm sure it's available elsewhere. And it's beyond heartbreaking. And again, being inflicted by our country. Don't look away, because most people are trying to. And it's gross.
I mean, I am frustrated.
The both sidesing is upsetting as shit.
And no offense. No offense to these people. Like, they mean well, right? And I'm sure they're not all incredibly well-versed in this. Even the both sidesing aside, my issue is that we're relying on begging and pleading with a government who clearly has no conscience. Like I'm tired of the begging with this.
Speaking of begging,
you know?
Hey, we do this for you. We are user funded. And yes, I'm going to let you get back to it in a second, but I'm putting up the slides so that people see who has actually contributed and supported independent media, and we deeply appreciate that. Please join them. Cash that app /$ Indie News Network. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. And you can see Stephen Rice became a new Patreon. Thank you so much. Woohoo! PayPal.me/Indie News Network. And that's how we ended up getting that Ko-fi from Sean, comes from PayPal. And we're on Rumble. If you're live on Rumble, say so, because we don't believe you. Fake views. Are you fake views? All right. So, yeah. So you're frustrated with the doctors both sidesing. Let's get back to that.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily even that. Like, that's just not understanding where solutions will come from. You know? And, like, I get it. They're trying, you know, well, if we're going to have a ceasefire, both people got to put, this is what our issue with ceasefire was about. Because it turns into this of like, well, you know, we can't let these people defend themselves from an obvious genocidal, like, religious state. Anyway, like, that aside, I get frustrated at, like, us having to constantly beg our governments to do the moral thing. It's infuriating and exhausting. You know?
Yeah. In every way, shape, and form.
And to act like they're going to listen to us suddenly when they've not done that in the last 8 decades.
Especially 9 months.
So,
what's going to make them start now?
Right.
All right. And that's the thing that frustrates me. But again, these are doctors that have survived. They went over there. They put their time and money and ass on the line, literally.
Yep. And we've read accounts from them and their compatriots. It's pretty fucking bad there. Like, I don't. Dude, there are doctors who have had to amputate their own children without anesthesia. It is hell on earth, to put it lightly. So,
yeah.
And we're pretty pleasing with cherries on top, you know.
Now, we talked about how Israel was taking out journalists. We also got an article. I brought a quick one from Indie Media Award honoree Kyle Anzalone of the Libertarian Institute and Anti-War. All right. Also, conflicts of interest. Sign up for them if you're not on YouTube. The IDF bombs a tent of journalists. Wow, where have we seen that before? The IDF dropped a bomb on a tent sheltering journalists covering the situation at the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. On Monday, journalist Haidar Ibrahim al-Musdar and several others experienced serious injuries when an Israeli munition hit a tent near the hospital in central Gaza. Yusuf al-Hindi, a rescue worker, told Middle East Eye, quote, "All the contents in the tent are journalistic equipment." They don't want any evidence of whatever's about to happen is basically what's happening. According to the Gaza Media Ministry, Massadar is the 163rd journalist killed over the past 9 months, a rate of over 4 reporters per week. The mass killing of journalists has left a shroud over the situation in Gaza and has allowed Tel Aviv to hide many of its war crimes in the Strip, which is exactly why they're murdering the journalists. Massadar is one of over 50 people killed across Gaza. On Monday alone, at least 39,000 Palestinians have been killed in the Israeli onslaught over the past 9 months. According to the doctors we just spoke to, they think it's over 90,000. A doctor at the Al-Aqsa Hospital said it was the second time an Israeli has recently struck a tent near the facility. Khalil al-Dakran told Middle East Eye, quote, "This shows the continuation of the genocide and the massacres in the Gaza Strip. That's very dangerous because hospitals provide health services while citizens are being targeted." Tel Aviv, of course, has often bombed civilian facilities in Gaza, claiming that members of Hamas are present. Israeli officials have authorized their forces to kill scores of civilians if they're targeting a member of an armed Palestinian group. I think it's an average of, you're allowed up to 10 civilian deaths per Hamas member, I believe was the number that we saw last.
I do believe that was correct.
Wow.
Which I'm sure is an understated number.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Not only, is it happening here? It's funny enough happening in Germany. Never heard of anything weird happening in Germany before, but our story begins.
Literally people being arrested over book covers and now wearing shirts with watermelons on them or little red triangles or, you know.
So this chapter of the story begins. Now, if you remember back in April, we covered that the Palestine conference was raided by, I believe it was 2,500 German police officers. A tiny little conference, more than one per person that attended, to try to bust this up. Ali Abunimah posts this on Twitter the other day and says the electronic intifada's Ali Abunimah is being threatened by German authorities with prison and fines for giving this talk about why Germany is participating in Israel's genocide in Gaza. He's doing it anyway. He says, and here's C.J. Hopkins, C.J., of course, his own Indie Media Award honoree, as if things weren't totalitarian enough in New Normal Germany, where he lives. Now the authorities are threatening to imprison activists for just speaking. This has nothing to do with which side of whatever you're on. It is a crackdown on dissent. Any type of dissent. Wake up and fight back. Again, Ali saying, I just received a 15-page notice from the German government threatening me with fines and prison if I proceed with an online talk at Palestina Congress today. I do not take orders from a regime that is participating in genocide and fully intend to go ahead with my talk, which he did remotely. Again, Cohen,
he's got books.
Dan Cohen reminding people that the Berlin regime prosecuted CJ for his writings, on German fascism, rolled out under the pretext of COVID because he put a swastika on a surgical mask. Okay. But Ali also wrote an article, and I brought it here. Germany is threatening me with prison for this talk on Palestine. And he says authorities in Berlin are threatening me with prison for giving a speech via Zoom to an audience in Germany on that country's role in Israel's ongoing Holocaust against the Palestinian people in Gaza. to whom he is actually related. So it's kind of personal for him. I gave the talk anyway to thousands of people viewing it online, and you can watch it in the video above. It was part of the Palestine Conference in Exile held on 25th and 26th of July. About 2 hours before my scheduled talk on the 26th, I received via a lawyer in Germany a 15-page notice from government authorities in Berlin informing me that I am prohibited from participating in the conference by any means, including online. The penalties include fines and up to 1 year in prison. Okay. As I spoke from the United States, Germany can claim no jurisdiction over me, but I've been given to understand that German authorities may still open a criminal case against me for violating the order. So be it. As I stated in the talk, I do not take orders from a regime that is participating in a genocide, and I take inspiration from Martin Luther King Jr., who wrote in his letter from a Birmingham jail, that one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws.
Mm-hmm.
I would have made the same decision to speak if I had been in Germany, and I am conscious that those organizing for Palestinian rights there, especially those members of the Palestinian community and their Jewish comrades, have already faced serious repression, including bans, police beatings, home raids, arrests, and other repressive measures. Conference organizers say that the ban echoes previous oppressive measures and shows once again the repressive face of German democracy, which it does.
Right to jail, right away.
The organizers add, in reference to the action against me, quote, "The persecution of a journalist exposing Germany's support of genocide mirrors the suppression of dissent, and it raises critical questions about whether Germany has fully internalized the lessons of its past, or if it is repeating the same mistakes under a different guise." In April, German authorities violently raided and shut down a Palestine conference in Berlin, banning speakers including Greek politician Yanis Varoufakis, Dr. Hassan Abu Sidah,
God bless you,
historian Salman Abu Sidah, and Ali Abu Nima himself. We covered that back then.
Yep.
The only person who managed to speak before that conference was violently shut down was journalist Heb Jamal. She participated in this conference too. Hassan Abu Sidah, the surgeon who treated victims in Gaza during the first month and a half of Israel's genocide, was detained at the airport as he entered Germany to speak at the April conference, slapped with a ban on political activities, also threatened with fines and prison, and deported to the UK. Turned around and put on another plane home. In Germany, the country...
Imagine in Germany, if you would, anyone doing anything like this to a speaker from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
The outrage that would occur. Like, just the hypocrisy is crazy.
Yep. In Germany,
but anyway,
the country whose leaders cry never again, bearing witness to genocide is now a crime. So, therefore, it was in response to that state violence and censorship that organizers held this conference completely online. Panels with other speakers will be published on the conference website in the coming days. He says, my 20-minute talk, Germany is guilty of genocide. Well, what do you mean? My 20-minute talk covers Germany's role in the ongoing Israeli genocide in Gaza and Germany's historical complicity with Zionism, a racist, fascistic, and colonial ideology. I now talk about how Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock have spread fabricated Israeli atrocity propaganda that justifies and incites genocide, and I called for both German leaders to be brought to justice. I try to answer the question of why Germany, which purports to be a modern democracy, would arm and support Israel as it exterminates Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. I explained that The German alliance with Zionism predates World War II and has roots in the anti-Semitic ideas of Protestants in the 19th century. It continued through the Nazi Holocaust and remains intact to this present day, into present day. All right, he's talking about Lord Balfour and the Zionist Conference of 1898 and the Balfour Declaration and the plan all along to establish a Zionist state aligned with more Christian Zionists than Jewish Zionists, which Christian Zionists outnumber Jewish Zionists. Again, see Reef and Collins' segment on that on INN News recently.
Yep.
Okay. I explained that, in fact, the German, right, okay, indeed, far from being the modern democracy it proclaims itself to be, many of the institutions of West Germany and later reunified Germany were founded by former members of the Hitler regime. Former Nazis occupied many senior positions in the government of West Germany. Kurt Kiesinger, who was West German chancellor in the 60s, had joined the Nazi Party before in 1933, the year Hitler came to power. He had, as journalist Beat Klarsfeld explained, been a high officer of Nazi propaganda during the war. Modern Germany's intelligence service, known by its initials BND, was founded by Reinhard Gehlen, who was a senior Nazi spy chief under Hitler and a later close collaborator of the CIA. I believe that was Operation Paperclip. Modern Germany's intelligence, right, we said that, as well, and well into the 1970s, the top ranks of West Germany's Justice Ministry teamed with former members of Hitler's Nazi Party. And I'm sure he's got more receipts to that in his speech here. We will have the full link to his speech in the description, or this article, which will have it embedded.
IOF uniforms brought to you by Hugo Boss. I mean, no.
Aren't they designed by Hugo or by Calvin Klein? I don't remember which one.
I don't remember, but if it's Hugo Boss, that's extra funny.
Tin Rabbit Podcast. Go check them out and subscribe if you haven't yet. Actually, the factoid is that there are more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews on the entire planet, which is crazy. Mouse SF, yes, we did see your comment, thank you, and your post earlier about Tim Dillon saying, who are these people? We're going to have to grab that for sure. Thanks for time-stamping that for us, make it easier. So if you do hear somebody say, who are these people, famous, timestamp it, let us know. We'll grab it and try to add that to our soundboard for sure. Thank you, Abby. Appreciate that. Upset as hell about the doctor stuff. Upset about Ali Abu Nima trying to get banned and what Germany is doing. We're moving into heavily authoritarian fascistic times, and we've been moving that way for years. But we need to support independent media more than ever, folks, because we're the only ones telling it like it is out here. Because corporate media sure ain't telling you what's going on with this. They're not reading the letter that the doctors just wrote. I'm telling you that for sure. Okay, they're trying to bury this stuff. They're trying to hide it. They're trying to make it inconvenient and distasteful for people to even discuss. And we're not going to do it, and we're not going to turn away. And we're going to keep spitting. Really, self-inflicted, or, this is all, and again, look at what's happening with the Democratic Party right now, trying to install someone that was not elected by anyone to be this. And it's just, we live in a clown show, folks. That we do. It's unfortunate. It's very sad. You could scan that QR code that you see during the rest of the show. We got it hidden right now. I guess I can pop it up there. I don't even know if I have it on the screen. No, we don't. Oh, that's sloppy. All right. Well, here it is. There it is up there. So co-fi.com/Indie News Network to be able to support independent media. We just got Jesse a new computer and an audio mixer and can't wait to hear what that's going to sound like. hopefully as early as Tuesday night on American Tradition, because we're going to have a new show on Tuesday night. I don't know if it's all going to be set up and ready to go by then. If not, it will for sure be the next one. So we need to change this from new laptop for Jesse to what is our next goal, and I'm gonna announce what our next goal is right now, folks. The Indie Media Awards. Have you ever heard of them? We've talked about them on this show once or twice. No,
I certainly wouldn't remember.
No, I didn't think that you knew about them. But you know, it's interesting because Misty actually posted today that she got something in the mail from cartoon artists by the name of the Zago Brothers, right? And Zago Brothers did an incredible work of art a couple of weeks ago. Where is the photo? There it is, and I'm going to bring it up now and show it to y'all. I think most of you have seen this, but what you haven't seen is the actual printed copy that Lucio Zago made and mailed to Misty. So he called this the Truth Tellers, and these are his favorite people that he likes to watch. And I reached out to Lucio when I saw this early on, and I'm like, dude, this is great. I'd love to work on this for the Indie Media Awards and have each Indie Media Award honoree get one of these. And he thought that was a great idea too, but and so we're working something out, and we're going to crowdfund, and not, you know, we're gonna ask our audience to contribute toward the Indie Media Awards this year. We're gonna have one made for every honoree. There's about 100, and I made a deal with Lucio to get these done. We're going to be able to put them in different groupings, and I think people are even going to be able to order prints with the people that they specifically want and the heads that they want on them. It's going to be really cool and really exciting. I'm grateful that Lucio did this and that he was willing to work with us to do that. And I think it'll be a really cool, fun honor for each of the people to get one of these with their photo, and we'll send them a nice blown up version, high resolution for themselves. And we may even put some of these in a shop, be able to have people order them as prints and t-shirts and everything else. So Lucio also sent a letter to Misty that says, "Hey, Misty, thanks for all your great work to free Julian Assange. You're by far one of our favorite independent media voices. Keep up the fight." So again, at Zago Brothers on Twitter, follow them for sure. Lucio's really cool. He's going to be working on these for the next 6-8 weeks or so. We will release them at some point in the future and can't wait to do that. But if you can contribute, that's where the Ko-fi money will be going towards for the next couple of months, will be towards supporting that effort and getting prints and the cartoon art, and supporting Lucio's independent cartoon art to do this for all the independent media people in our space that are honored with an Indie Media Award. Again, hit it. No.
What?
No.
You didn't say honoree. That's only for...
Oh, I said the award, but anyway. Mine's not working now. Now my soundboard's busted. God damn it. Every time. There it goes. It's going to go 6 times probably now. All right. So that's what we're going to do with our Ko-fi money. So we need to change it. So support the Indie Media Awards is what that's going to go to. And I have got how many more stories? One more story. And it is our friend of the show, Keith McHenry. You know who Keith McHenry is?
Food Not Bombs.
Food Not Bombs. He's a co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing this for like 40 years. And he's got a blog called Anarchist Cookbook, or The Anarchist Cook, with Keith McHenry. I'm going to put that up right now. And I'm going to blow this up so you can actually read it. But I wanted you to see what the site looks like. It's like an old WordPress site. And he says, "It's already happening here. Santa Cruz and the theater of hypocrisy, carnage, and suffering. And now I'm going to put this into reader mode so we can actually like see it blown up. Right. And he talks about, I don't know if you've seen that movie, It Could Happen Here. Way back in like the 1930s in black and white, they're talking about fear mongering about fascism and Hitler and all that.
Vaguely. Like, I feel like I've seen something similar, but maybe not that specifically.
Oh. I saw this story, this article in Truth Out about what Gavin Newsom intends to do, and he issued some kind of an order along the lines of a Supreme Court recent decision that says that cities and municipalities have the authority to kick out homeless encampments, basically, and break them up. So now Newsom has changed his rhetoric, and he's now ordering more sweeps and more encampments to be taken down. So, again, what Keith writes here is that the Buzz Windrip type characters of Santa Cruz plan to read the 1935 dystopian political novel written by American author Sinclair Lewis, a Good Times cover story promoting Bookshop Santa Cruz's reading of It Can't Happen Here, warned that if we don't vote for the political party waging a genocide in Palestine and arming far-right Nazi groups in Ukraine, that Trump would come to power. The fascist dictator Buzz Windrip of Lewis's text. Before
Buzz
that,
Windrip.
Yep, that's what the character's name was in It Could Happen Here.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, July 19th, the 418 Project, featuring Congressman Jimmy Panetta and Mayor Fred Keeley, I visited my friends on the levee, handing out some of the last of the announcements for the evening's It's Already Happening Here protest. As I walked up to one group perching along the levee, I could hear two Santa Cruz police officers chatting with several tent occupants about providing pizza. Once the officers moved on, I asked about this pizza donation. They explained that the police claimed that they would give you pizza if you took a drug test. They weren't sure if that offer was still good if you tested positive.
Let's test the guy who delivers it and see if it works out.
Joe Schultz of India Joe's met me at the Trader Joe's parking lot, delivering iced tea for the 6 p.m. rally.
Trader's Joe.
India Joe's at the Trader Joe's parking lot, yes. All right. We set up the table with pastries, sandwiches, and cold drinks on the River Street sidewalk. The first of those from the levee joined us for a snack. I mean, if there are people in this world that are destined and that are due statehood, honestly, Keith McHenry would be right up there with for me. He's not, and he would tell you he'd be the first to say he's far from it.
I'd rather him not.
He'd be the first to say he's far from it. But
continue to do the work.
But no, my point is what he's doing is he's literally just feeding the homeless, and they're arresting him and fucking with his organization. He says, I saw a few people assembling outside the front door of the theater, so not wishing to waste the last of my flyers, I ambled down to share them with the people waiting to hear the congressman and mayor. A security guard dashed out of the venue and thrusting 2 white envelopes at me as he mumbled something about me being banned from the area. I shared that I didn't care and continued passing out flyers until he summoned one of Santa Cruz's police officers. To avoid a pre-protest arrest, I wandered off to retrieve my bullhorn, returning to blast my message to those in the banned area. It's already happening. You don't need to wait for Trump. A genocide sounds like fascism. Arming Nazis in Ukraine sounds like fascism. Sweeping the homeless also sounds like fascism. It wasn't long before a crowd of protesters arrived, and I suggested they could move from the sidewalk and take the action directly outside the entrance to the event. Before long, several dozen people arched around the people lining up to get in. Right? I gave my bullhorn to one of the Palestinian activists and joined the group holding our Stop the Sweeps banner, defying the threat of arrest. And there he is, standing there. Right? Wallace Bain writes in Lookout Santa Cruz, quote, several dozen protesters armed with bullhorns, drums, and flamethrower passions ringed the theater, creating a din that the actors inside had to nearly shout over. On top of that, a few protesters found their way into the audience and at least 5 times interrupted the play reading with loud denunciations aimed at the panelists. Jose Vega would have been very proud, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
After the spoiled political theater ended, it was clear from their distressed-looking faces that Keeley and Panetta were desperate to flee their free speech circus. I opened these 2 envelopes the next morning, discovering that the 418 Project Executive Director Laura Bishop's letter that I was persona non grata, adding person not welcome until August 1st, 2034. You read that right. A decade-long ban at 155 River Street or any event held elsewhere by the 418 Project. The second letter also banned me from the Galleria Mall for 10 years. Come on, man.
But not the mall.
Oh, no.
Oh, what are you going to do? You won't be able to get that shitty, sharper image tat you thought you might want.
Wow.
Like, Hot Topic's not even there, bro. It's not even worth it.
Spencer Gifts?
You know? Right. At least let me in the Spencers.
Where else are you going to get your fake dongs these days? Oh, yeah, that's right. The internet.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Sinclair Lewis's novel warned that Buzz Windrip was an enemy of free speech, adding an interesting twist to my pre-ban letters seeking to silence the protest. This is not too much of a surprise. The event's host, Bookshop Santa Cruz, commemorated Banned Books Month, while owner Casey Coonerty Proddy's husband, Coonerty, yes, really Coonerty, Michael Proddy, directed the unit at Meta that silenced medical professionals who were critical of Trump's COVID policies, posts detailing the arming of far-right Azov Nazis, allegedly, by the Biden administration, not really, allegedly, but really, and the ugly truth of the genocide in Gaza. Fascism is a family affair for the Coonerty folks. Casey's brother is a former county supervisor, Ryan Coonerty. A 2012 Monterey Herald article titled Predictive Policing Gets Capital Boost reports that attorney Caleb Baskin and Councilman Ryan Coonerty, remember the last name, have taken
Baskins?
It might be Carol Baskin's father, husband, brother, someone related. Who knows?
Carol Baskins.
Councilman Ryan Coonerty have taken the experimental predictive policing program used by the Santa Cruz Police Department and created software that they hope to sell to law enforcement agencies around the nation. Fucking parasites. The duo, who founded the co-working business Next Space, say they've raised more than $1 million so far to fund their newest venture. You mean laundering operation? You mean bullshit? Yeah. The article continues, quote, the program has gained international media attention, because they said so, and the attention of law enforcement agencies nationwide, many asking how they can get the program, because they told the paper to tell them that's what was happening. Based on such requests, Zach Friend helped coordinate a meeting between Mueller and Baskin and Coonerty to discuss the idea of creating a business. Again, this was 2012. So Baskin, 36, and Coonerty, 38. The investors who've helped fund their venture include Plantronics CEO Ken Canapan, former eBay executive Rob Chestnut, and Coonerty's brother-in-law Michael Proddy, a vice president at Yahoo. There's that name again, Proddy. Predpol, predictive policing, is based on an analytics model developed by a group of researchers, including mathematician George Moeller of Santa Clara University and Jeff Brantingham at UCLA's Department of Anthropology. Again, this is from Keith McHenry, Food Not Bombs, an anarchist cook. In 2018, TheVerge.com had posted about Jeff Brantingham that he is as close as it gets to putting a face on the controversial practice of predictive policing. We talked about this last week with Whitney Webb and Palantir and Total Information Awareness and Meta and LifeLog and how this all connects with Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance and California. Over the past decade, the University of California, Los Angeles anthropology professor adapted his Pentagon-funded research in forecasting battlefield casualties in Iraq to predicting crime for American police departments, patenting his research, and founding a for-profit company called PredPol LLC. A June 2021 article, Stop LAPD Spying, sues LAPD to uncover communications with UCLA professor who founded PredPol, reports on opposition to this dystopian racist police state software started by Ryan Coonerty. So that's where it ties back, is that this Coonerty family and his brother-in-law. In 2019, a group of 68 UCLA professors and graduate students sent a letter to LAPD condemning Professor Brantingham's work on predictive policing technologies. And in June 2020, during pandemic and after George Floyd, over 1,400 academic mathematicians joined a public letter condemning mathematical research that contributes to racist racist policing. That too. The letter singled out Professor Brantingham's work with LAPD and named PredPol's racist consequences. So they were looking for an answer and they got it because they produced it. Posted on datasmart.hks.harvard.edu in 2013, Dr. George Moeller could not have foreseen the deluge that descended upon him at Santa Clara University shortly after local police adopted his groundbreaking algorithm in July 2011, and media reported that his new software was taking criminals off the streets. He says, it may seem a stretch, but the model of post-earthquake tremblors is very similar to that of criminal activity, he said. Criminals want to replicate their successes. They go back to similar locations. They repeat their crimes. It's almost identical to how aftershocks roll out after earthquakes, following predictable fault lines and timetables. So this is how he's... Again, pre-crime is what he's talking about, predictive pre-crime. In 2010, Dr. Moeller took his seismology theory north to Santa Clara University, where he joined as assistant professor of mathematics and computer science and married and started a family. And then serendipity struck. He met Zach Friend, a public information officer and crime analyst with the Santa Clara Police. Friend was intrigued by the potential of predictive analytics, and soon he and Moeller were brainstorming how the latter's algorithm to track earthquake aftershocks could be adapted for police work. Dr. Moeller says, we met several times and decided to try for deployment with the Santa Cruz Police. I wrote the prototype software and gave it to the police in July 2011. It turns out Zach was a media mastermind. He'd work in the press office of the 2008 Obama campaign. Once Pop Sci and the New York Times picked up the story, it was off to the races. So he basically got the story planted in mainstream corporate media and got corporate media to perform propaganda, is essentially what he's saying. So Keith, back to Keith, it was fitting that someone supporting the genocide in Gaza and the army of Azov far-right military units in Ukraine would be reading a play warning of fascism. His April 20th, 2024 post on his blog announced his support for more war as he writes, quote, the package would deliver critical support for Ukraine in its efforts to push back against Russia's unprovoked war of aggression, safeguard Taiwan from an advancing China, and ensure the security of the nation of Israel in a volatile Middle East, unquote. Who wrote this? Mm-hmm. I'm guessing it's Zach Friend, who worked with the Obama administration. He says the $95 billion national security package includes, of course, $61 billion for Ukraine, $26 billion for Israel, $8 billion to bolster defense capabilities in the Indo-Pacific, that's Taiwan, and $9 billion for global humanitarian assistance, meaning the cleanup after we destroy all these people's homes. Meanwhile, the city of Santa Cruz is getting $4 million to clear the homeless from outside the homeless shelter.
Yep.
Keith sent me that earlier. Bookshop Santa Cruz is not shy about hosting war criminals. They invited a former CIA director to speak on the need to expand the war on terrorism on September 10, 2018 at Peace United Church. Expand the war on terrorism at Peace United Church. Anybody see the irony there? Several of us who protest Panetta's call for more war were banned from Bookshop Santa Cruz for life, but Casey changed her mind, realizing I was helping organize an event with Chris Hedges, and she'd already ordered copies of his books. Panetta has been a soldier of advancing the agenda of the empire for decades. When he was Clinton's chief of staff, the administration's sanctions and no-fly zone killed more than 560,000 children, according to a study by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. A December 12, 2011 Voice of America propaganda report noted, quote, U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta is on a surprise visit to Afghanistan, where he says 2011 will mark a turning point in the 10-year-old war, which then became a 20-year-old war. Panetta would denounce Biden's hasty evacuation 10 years later, after tens of thousands of Afghans had been killed. Gross. The locally owned Bookshop Santa Cruz is not the innocent free speech defender of democracy as it likes to project. Like others in Santa Cruz who seek to project a do-no-harm image, many are direct participants in the creation of a frightening dystopian digital panopticon complete with robotic warfare. What? An officer... An officer of the anti-homeless hate group Take Back Santa Cruz is the husband of Google's general counsel, Halima Delane Prado. We received a snapshot of Manuel's emails between himself, city manager Martin Bernal, Mayor Donna Myers, and Republican city councilperson Renee Golder coordinating efforts to rid Santa Cruz of the homeless. In a December 18, 2020 email, Manuel thanks Martin for the week before's Zoom meeting, writing about striping Delaware, where many have been living in vehicles to sleep, stepping up enforcement of all parking rules, not just the 72-hour limit, and this update on why such folks, such as Keith McHenry, parked on McPherson, and Alicia Cool, parked on Delaware, have not been towed despite receiving so many tickets. Unquote. It's a relief to learn that their intelligence on my parking locations and ticket reality is so inept. Google is one of many companies advancing slaughter in Gaza with their Project Nimbus. This $1.2 billion joint contract between Google and Amazon signed in 2021 provides cloud computing infrastructure, AI, and other technology services to the Israeli government and its military. Isn't that nice?
Yep.
A staff person who attended the 2x2 meetings between city and county officials shared the Halima Delane Prado exchange with County Supervisor Ryan Coonerty and Mayor Donna Myers. Myers and Coonerty talked about busing the homeless to Camp Roberts, California National Guard Base in Monterey and San Luis Obispo counties. Isn't that nice? Facebook, of course, is another local CIA-linked member of the national security state. We talked about that last week. Investigative journalist Whitney Webb's April 12, 2021 article, The Military Origins of Facebook, writes, quote, Facebook's growing role in the ever-expanding surveillance and pre-crime apparatus of the national security state demands new scrutiny of the company's origins and its products as they relate to a former controversial DARPA-run surveillance program that was essentially analogous to what is currently the world's largest social network. According to Meta's website, Ryan Coonerty's brother Michael Prady is the head of privacy at Facebook. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. Wrong one. Wrong one. This one. Because it's relevant here. I put this graphic together, and what he's talking about and what Whitney's talking about is Facebook was originally LifeLog. We read this last week during Whitney's article about Peter Thiel and his connections between all of these organizations and people. Okay, and that's what Keith is talking about here, that Facebook is connected to LifeLog, which was DARPA, and the chief of privacy at Facebook is this guy's brother, Coonerty's brother-in-law, Michael Prodi. That's bad. And the one who, by the way, also, I think her husband or his wife owns this bookstore where they're hosting war criminals and, hosting the It Could Happen Here event or protesting it.
Bad news, bad things are happening.
Well, they're shit lips. Whitney wrote in mid-February that Daniel Baker, a U.S. veteran described by the media as anti-Trump, anti-government, anti-white supremacist, and anti-police, was charged by a Florida grand jury with 2 counts of transmitting a communication in interstate commerce containing a threat to kidnap or injure. We actually covered that Daniel Baker story here on How Do We Miss That? The communication in question had been posted by Baker on Facebook, where he had created an event page to organize an armed counter-rally to one planned by Donald Trump supporters at the Florida capital of Tallahassee on January 6th. Close to your house, Reef.
Yep.
Quote,
Yep.
If you are afraid to die fighting the enemy, then stay in bed and live. Call all of your friends and rise up, he had written on his Facebook event page. Actually, no, that was journalist Stephen Baker. That's not Daniel Baker, the activist here. This is a different story. I apologize. I got them confused. Baker's case is notable as it is one of the first pre-crime arrests based entirely on social media posts. The logical conclusion of the Trump administration's and now Biden administration's push to normalize arresting individuals for online posts to prevent violent acts before they can happen. From the increasing sophistication of U.S. intelligence and military contractor Palantir's predictive policing programs to the formal announcement of the Justice Department's disruption and early engagement program in 2019, to Biden's first budget, which contained $111 million for pursuing and managing increasing domestic terrorism caseloads, the steady advance toward pre-crime-centered war on domestic terror has been notable under every post-9/11 presidential administration. It's not ramping down, and they still haven't really attacked us at home. Yet the post-9/11 war, Homeland Security budget is bigger than ever, is what he's saying. Palantir was in the news the night Congressman Panetta and Mayor Keeley read It Can't Happen Here. Palantir's co-founders Joe Lonsdale and Peter Thiel announced that they would be supporting Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Go figure, because Peter Thiel is the puppet master behind J.D. Vance's career, from setting him up in his Mithril Capital hedge fund, his book and his movie deals, the U.S. Senate, to his rise as Trump's vice presidential running mate. The swamp is already in Trump's tent. Another Thiel associate, the military contractor Elon Musk, also pledged support.
Twitter.
Yep, fuck Twitter. Okay. The military contractor Elon Musk also pledged support for the Trump ticket, assuring the wars will continue no matter who is elected. Yeah. While Palantir is donating millions to Trump's campaign, they were also bragging in their ads about that their AI software was used by the FBI to nab nearly 1,000 January 6th Trump supporters. Palantir serves as a contractor to all 17 of the U.S. intelligence agencies, as well as many other U.S. federal agencies, including the Pentagon. It was largely funded into existence by the CIA's In-Q-Tel, and the CIA was Palantir's only client from 2005 until 2008, during which time the CIA was a key part of directing Palantir's product development. It was built for and around them, after being spun off by DARPA. And the Whitney covered this last week. The U.S., it was so controversial. The U.S. government didn't want anything to do with it. So what did they do? They privatized it and they hired somebody else to manage it and worry about it and handle the liability. James Bamford writes in the April 2024 issue of The Nation, quote, earlier this month saw a continuation of that effort with the targeting of 3 well-marked and fully approved aid vehicles belonging to World Central Kitchen, killing their 7 occupants and ensuring that the food would never reach those dying of starvation. The targeting was precise, placing missiles dead center in the aid agency's rooftop logos. Israel, however, said it was simply a mistake, similar to the mistaken killing of nearly 200 other aid workers in just a matter of months, more than all the other aid workers killed. Mm-hmm.
There's new footage for that, I think, that hasn't been released yet that the UK has, I do believe. So I forget who put that out, but
the aid workers already killed,
I think, has got that story,
are more than all the other aid workers killed in all the wars in the rest of the world over the last 30 years combined, according to the Aid Worker Security Database. Such horrendous mistakes are hard to understand, considering the enormous amount of advanced targeting AI hardware and software provided to the Israeli military and spy agencies, some of it by one American company in particular, Palantir Technologies. Well, we stand with Israel, the Denver-based company said in posts on X and LinkedIn. The board of directors of Palantir will be gathering in Tel Aviv next week for its first meeting of the new year. Our work in the region has never been more vital, and it will continue.
You can just replace "We stand with Israel" with "They kneel for Israel," and that just works.
As one of the world's most advanced data mining companies with ties to the CIA, Palantir's work was supplying Israel's military and intelligence agencies with advanced and powerful targeting capabilities, the precise capabilities that allowed Israel to place 3 drone-fired missiles into 3 clearly marked aid vehicles. So that's Joe Lonsdale. He's a co-founder of Palantir alongside Peter Thiel. His corporate profile says he's a technology entrepreneur and investor. He's the managing partner at 8VC, a U.S.-based venture capital firm that manages several $billion in committed capital. He was an early institutional investor in several technology startups, including the Santa Cruz military contractor Joby Aviation. Ryan Coonerty's investor Ken Canapan sold his Plantronics building to Joby Aviation in November 2022. The Joby Aviation website noted in April 2022 that the U.S. Air Force's Agility Prime program would net more than $45 million for the Santa Cruz company. So they're also military contractors, which we knew, building on more than 5 years of engagement with defense agencies. The expanded contract leverages Joby's years of research and technology development and will include new testing to evaluate their advanced technologies. It brings the potential value of the total contract to more than $75 million. Okay. Why does that matter with Joby Aviation? Just because he doesn't... Okay, he's an institutional investor in this company. So he owns this, and he also owns Palantir, or he's a co-founder. He also started the Cicero Institute.
Yeah, to the tune of 75 mil, which is like...
That's just on this one contract. That's just on this one contract.
Right.
Lonsdale also started the Cicero Institute, which is a policy group that delivers entrepreneurial solutions to public problems. The public-private partnership that Whitney always warns about. The Cicero Institute campaigns for laws that allow private competition in government areas such as healthcare, housing, and education. Little cracks in the system. So what they'll do is they'll find some kind of a problem, exploit that, offer a private solution, which then commercializes it, and then fuck it up, by the way. But oh yeah, we're paying for it in the whole time. The Cicero Institute provides legislative templates to states and cities. Oh, great. His website on homelessness starts, states should ban unauthorized street camping. Quote, street camps are dangerous to the public and the vulnerable homeless alike. They are homeless. What do you mean? They are often hotbeds of violence, especially against women and children, especially those who are homeless themselves. The public widely supports enforcing ordinances against dangerous street camps and moving individuals into emergency shelters. And that's what the whole game is. He goes on to write, quote, states should amend civil commitment laws to make it easier to help those who cannot help themselves and get them out of prison, adding, quote, many street homeless suffer from chronic and untreated mental illness. For those that are a public nuisance or a danger to themselves or others, there must be a third option besides prison and abandonment. So definitely destroying their encampment home is the way to do it, right? So far, the Cicero Institute has placed 10 bills in at least 8 states, including Arizona, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and Wisconsin. Texas became the first state to pass such a law in 2021, and Tennessee and Missouri followed in 2022. So now it is literally illegal, like to sleep in your car, I believe. Cynthia Griffith wrote about Wisconsin's Assembly Bill 689 and Senate Bill 669 on the Invisible People website. Quote, concentration camps and secret committees, out-of-state lobbyists, and flat-out lies, as unbelievable and terrifying as it sounds, this is the glimpse into what's happening behind closed doors in 2024 Wisconsin. And it gets even worse. Just in case you were worried it didn't. Kentucky GOP's new bill decriminalizes use of deadly force against the unhoused. Yep. The Cicero Institute website notes that on March 20th, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed House Bill 1365, which will make Florida a leading state in the fight against the failed homelessness policies that have wreaked havoc on so many American citizens. And then we've got Joe Lonsdale. Again, he's co-founder of Palantir, and he's military contractor. It's been a momentous few weeks for the homeless policy in the United States, as you may know. This has been a keystone policy area for us since founding the Cicero Institute, and we've become the leading organizational voice for reform, as well as a resource for state leaders who want to take bold action. In Florida, we were proud to work with lawmakers on a legislative package that meets the needs of state and emphasizes the accountability model that we pioneered. Bullshit, accountability. Such garbage. Joe Lonsdale had another win on April 22nd. This one's a big one, with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Grants Pass v. Johnson, letting localities impose criminal penalties for acts like public camping and public sleeping without violating the Eighth Amendment, even if they lack sufficient available shelter space to accommodate their unhoused population. This is where it gets so bad. All right. Democratic mayors and governors pushed to have the meager protections of the Grants Pass case overturned. But yesterday's ruling by the Supreme Court provides state and local officials the definitive authority to implement and enforce policies to clear unsafe encampments from our streets, is what Gavin Newsom said in a statement. This decision removes the legal ambiguities that have tied to the hands of local officials for years and limited their ability to deliver on common sense measures to protect the safety and well-being of our communities. I'm going to let you ask the big question about money in this case. Go ahead.
I mean, where's the money? Where's the money, Lebowski?
How much have we given to homelessness, to fight homelessness in this country? Somebody's got it. No, a ton. We've thrown billions into it. But what have we got to show for it is nothing.
I mean, have we tried just giving them homes? Have we tried?
Maybe they should stop eating avocado toast, or maybe they should eat ramen noodles.
Bootstraps.
The bipartisan march to criminalize America's homeless doesn't need to wait for the election of Trump and Vance. It is happening now in Santa Cruz. The city of Watsonville began to clear out a homeless encampment along the Pajaro River levee on Monday, July 22nd. It's a process that's expected to last through August 2nd. The Santa Cruz police posted eviction notices on tents throughout the Paganip, telling those who fled the sweeps at Harvey West and Coral Streets that they had to remove their belongings by 9 a.m. on July 29th. That's like coming up this morning. Jessica York writes in her April 19, 2024 Sentinel article, quote, Santa Cruz received $4 million to address Harvey West and Coral Street homeless encampments. During the 2-year life of the Encampment Resolution Fund, granted via the State of Department...
Bro, imagine what you could do with $4 million.
To sweep out the encampments and clean the streets. That's what they're doing.
Right, but that's just what that is. No, I know that. But, like, imagine using that money for actually making them not homeless. Imagine.
Santa Cruz would be expected to assist
doing something like that.
55 people on the streets, but the city claims there are over 1,000, and that's based on what seemed an intentionally poor organized point-in-time count. And we talked about counting the homeless. I think between us, it was a private conversation. I know we talked about the count on this show once, where we read an article about someone who walked around the city and tried to count homeless people in order to determine how many there were, and it was really difficult, and it was not an exact science by any stretch. Right? You've got a June 4th email from CEO of Housing Matters, Phil Kramer, who thanked the mayor, city managers, and Housing for Health Director Robert Ratner for clearing the area around the homeless shelter of the homeless. The sidewalks are stained and reek of urine. Is it possible for city staff to do some sidewalk power washing? If you give us authorization, we might be able to do some of this cleaning work ourselves or hire it out. And they ended up hiring 20 employees. Right? So they're now paying people with that $4 million to clean the sidewalks. But they're also clearing out the people who live there. In a rush to remove the homeless got another boost when California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Executive Order N-124 on July 24th, directing state and local officials to start removing homeless encampments, stating that the recent Supreme Court ruling in Grants Pass v. Johnson now empowers cities to enforce bans on sleeping outside in public. So yes, it is already happening here, and it is likely to get even more repressive as the noose of biometric IDs and programmable digital currency, an AI-driven world war, and the internment of homeless Americans is implemented by these very same people who struggled to read "It Can't Happen Here" at the Bookshop Santa Cruz event. All right. This is the notice, by the way, that's posted to vacate on the tents. He posted that up there. Notice to vacate. The unaccompanied items are subject to removal and may be discarded or destroyed. They want to destroy people's stuff. It's like impossible to look when you set up an encampment like that. You can't just take it all down. They gave what they said is they gave them 10 days. They posted it on the 19th and said by the 29th, get your stuff out. Here, look, let me see the end there. Here, so they posted on the 19th, if they even posted it then at all. All right, for sponsored shelter navigation, there's a phone number. For related inquiries, there's a phone number. But man, I mean, I get that California has a homelessness problem and they need to do something about it. All right, and they have to figure it out. Anna Kasparian, I'll bet, would be very happy about this whole solution.
Yep, she supported similar, did she not?
Yes. Unlike an organization that's funded by Jeffrey Katzenberg, we are funded by our users and by the people watching now, and we love you for it. Please, if you can, and if you can't, enjoy the show, watch the show, but support independent media because we need it more than ever to challenge the corporate crap that's out there. You can do so by any of the links there or by going to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network as well and supporting your streamers and helping out for the Indie Media Awards, which is what we're going to be doing. We're going to change that from new laptop for Jesse. Yeah, it's so frustrating. They're not providing adequate shelter. All right. Steve Gee, there are over 27 vacant homes per each homeless person. That is correct. All right. There's so much. God. Wow. What else? How's everyone doing? We're just about ready. Abby says that civilian discourse tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central. Okay, in case you haven't been there, check out at Abby Do, Abby Don't. All right. I've got a few quick hits, and then we can get to boats and everything else. I know I'm running behind, so let's do that quick.
Who are these people?
All right. Friend of the show, Rich Slutsky. Used to be called Crying Grim over on the Twitters. Everyone knows Crying Grim and loves him. You can find him over on the Substack at Counterspin Lies, Damn Lies, and Spin. Posted an article I thought some of our friends might find interesting about Jen Dies. You remember her, right? And his article reads Lies, Damn Lies,
unfortunately,
and Jen Dies' untimely retirement. And this is a quick one, so I'll read this quickly. This is going to be a very brief post, as I wanted a comment from Jen, but was unable to acquire one after much emailing and waiting. Last year, we discussed Jen and her blind hatred of Jimmy Dore in a piece titled Lies, Damn Lies in the Church of Bitching About Jimmy Dore, which I think we might have read here, in which we tore to shreds line by line, discussing baseless accusations of pay-to-play from Jen. In that following year, Jen at some point abruptly deleted the article and another we linked to in the article, one in which she chided Jimmy Dore for being too harsh on Cornel West, a political non-entity running for president. So, did Jen issue a retraction or offer any sort of apology for her baseless accusatory tone? Of course not. No. In May 2024, she decided to leave writing entirely as a profession and abandon her Courageous News or Courage News publication, still available on Substack. I'll update this further if we get more, but I think this is the end of the road. The article was deleted, the account now dormant, the political hit machine failed, the author disappeared from public life after an illustrious career kissing the asses of neoliberal Democrats and writing for Rolling Stone. More as we get it. I thought people might enjoy that. Subscribe to our friend Rich, who aligns with us over here at INN. We share his stuff on INN Stack.
About as courageous as brave Sir Robin. Like,
so I asked you the other day. You know about Bethesda Game Studios? They're pretty big, right?
Yeah. Fallout. What else? Skyrim.
Right.
Plenty of titles under the roster. Todd Howard. Glorious Todd Howard.
It's been a depressing evening. However, we have a little bit of good news. Bethesda became the first Microsoft game studio to actually unionize. They aligned with the Communications Workers of America, and Microsoft is actually going to recognize the union and negotiate with them, which is great. So I wanted to mention that. That was over at Mashable, which I'm not always a fan of what they publish, but that was some good information. I showed earlier the graphic that I made about Palantir, Promist, Facebook, LifeLog, DARPA, Total Information Awareness, and Peter Thiel's connection to all of this. And again, now Peter Thiel is funding J.D. Vance and in position to influence the Trump White House in a lot of ways. This helps make the connection visually between how they started as government programs and where they are now as private, publicly funded, publicly traded entities on the stock market. So check that out. Finally, not really, almost finally, but we've got a full slate of shows this week. Holy moly. Last night, we had Pro Wrestling Talk at 8, and Snow Himbo streamed the Thaumaturge at 11, and he didn't quite make it to the end, so he's going to finish it this week probably. You're here on Sunday, so this is How Do We Miss That? We've got Boats coming up next. Tomorrow night, we have the debut of a brand new show. I'm so excited. We haven't had a new show in a while on INN. Snow Himbo and Yeti Jesus have decided to get together and do a Canadian show called The Maple Files. And they're going to talk about Canadian stuff. On Tuesday night, we're going to have an all-new American Tradition, hopefully with Jesse and his new stuff, that we can hear better quality stuff and see him better through the laptop. Wednesday night, INN News. Will Colin be back? It's a mystery. You'll have to tune in to find out. Thursday night, we've got politically...
We know who will be there.
Well, this guy will be there. But Thursday night...
also...
Oh, right.
Vanessa Beeley.
Right, Vanessa Beeley. Yes, you got Vanessa Beeley coming on pre-record. Yes. So that'll be run on Wednesday
sort of
night.
Damascus herself.
That's right.
So...
Thursday night, again, mystery guest who will be attending alongside Snow Himbo. I don't know. Good question. And then Friday night, check out Angel in the Afternoon. We know that Alex Knight was on last Friday with Angel. And then 10:30, we've got Clip Show with Jesse. Last week was epic. I don't know how many we're going to pick this week, but it'll be a couple dozen. And this will be from episodes 23 to 33 of American Tradition out of the 44 that we've run so far. And we'll pull some best of, some first reads, some world debuts, etc. And that'll be a good time. If you weren't there Friday night, it was a blast. It was long, 2.5 hours. Just like this, actually. But this is all original. That was just clips and great stuff of listening to Jesse read and play music. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely check out American Tradition Clip Show Friday nights. Subject to change, all times Eastern, of course, but that's our calendar for the week. Speaking of the Maple Files, that's what the logo is going to look like. Nice big maple leaf, the Maple Files, starring Yeti, Jesus, and Snow Himbo. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern on all the INN channels. As always, all the clips for How Do We Miss That are available here on indiemediatoday.com. Okay, as well as original articles and show alerts for live streams, guest appearances like when I was on INN News last week and on the Homeless Left, tech tips, all the stuff. Really, best way to stay in touch is right here over at indiemediatoday.com, which also will then put you over to INN Stack. All right. And INN Stack by Indie News Network is where all of the network stuff goes, including articles published by The Dissident and Rich Lutsky and me and Yeti and Reef and Snow Himbo. So all the members of INN publish here. This is and our weekly update, of course, the weekly update, which would go out to indiemediatoday.com, but is originated and lives here at INN Stack because it's about INN. So, yeah, the last one was about the Indie Media Awards. Again, we're going to work with the artists Zago Brothers to have cartoon heads drawn of all of the Indie Media Award honorees. I provided them with the list, and we're going to ask our audience to help contribute to that and to support independent media and support independent art that will be given to independent media. So, again, really appreciate everyone hanging out tonight. We're going to do boats in a few minutes. Need to just kind of reset everything, and we will be back to do hilarious stuff. But I love you all, and I really appreciate everyone hanging out and watching this and supporting independent media. Yeah, talking about Amazon and not talking about the presidential horse race that we just, what's the point, guys? It's going to end up the same thing no matter what. Nothing's going to fundamentally change. So I'd rather talk about the stories that matter, talk about the stories that aren't being talked about, and see where can we actually affect change and do some things and help people. I'd much rather do that than focus on the clown show. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Share it out. Support your streamers and independent media. Support INN. And we'll be back soon for boats. So support independent media. Love you all.
Good night, fam. See you in a bit.
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So